In New Zealand, it's pretty obvious that boys and girls are different. Men have bigger muscles, bigger stomachs, and bigger egos. They're aggressive, easily distracted, and they're unemotional. Women, on the other hand, have breasts, babies, and the ability to talk. They're in touch with their feelings, they're ambitious, and they like to shop. Most of these differences are obvious, but in the last 40 years, things have begun to change. Over the next 4 weeks, we'll look at why, on average, women are still paid less than men. Why people think women are running the country, and men can't sit next to kids on a plane. We're going to put men, women, children and animals to the test and bust a few myths along the way. We're looking at just where gender relations are at in New Zealand. Ask yourself, is rugby still number one for your man?
I like watching the rugby, but I don't think it's more important than sex.
Is your sister drinking more than you?
Every factor around women's drinking has increased.
Are you fighting with your wife over the bathroom mirror?
I always cleanse, toe, moisturise twice daily.
Does your partner ever clean the toilet? And who's really on top in your bedroom? Although gender relations are definitely changing in New Zealand, we barely give them a thought.
New Zealand in some ways has had a social experiment over the last 40 years that's been pretty radical.
I think a young NZ girl today is less likely to settle for less.
Women are taking over, but it's a good thing. You know, we've done it for so many years, let them do it.
Where have we come from? Where are we going? And will we like it when we get there? Who's getting the better deal in the New Zealand sex wars? In this episode, the physical differences.
I love that physically men are stronger than women.
I take my hat off to women with the birthing, you know, giving birth and the whole process of being pregnant.
Mind you, I banged my head on a cupboard the other day, and I reckon that is pain, you know, so don't tell me about your labour pains.
I love that we don't have to be tough as girls. We can be strong in other ways other than physically.
And at the end of the day, you know, if everything turns to custard, we can still do that female thing of going, honey, can you do it?
Who's got the physical edge is debatable. So we've assembled 14 typical Kiwi men and women to get some answers. And first up, something obvious. Why do women always get lost, and why don't men use a map? Some people say men needed a good sense of direction to help them find their way back to their cave. With no windows to help them, which of our 14 people can point due north? For you at home, north's in the corner by the door.
North. North.
Yep, that's north.
North. North that way.
North.
North.
North. North. North. It would be north. North. North.
5 of our men could point due north, but only 2 of our women could do the same.
Yeah, there would be a tendency, I think, towards men being generally better, but it's not a fixed rule.
He just works things out all the time. That's probably why I'm not very good at it, because I tend to rely on him and I know he's right.
When somebody tells me to turn right or turn left.
If I'm in a big city, I'll just go with a gut feel rather than pull a map book out.
They may be more of a hunting instinct or something.
I'm so bad.
We'll see more of our people throughout the series. Maps, compasses, and getting lost is just one of the ways men and women differ. But our gender, whether we're a man or a woman, affects almost every aspect of our lives. Gender is everywhere.
I'd say gender is probably the most important social category that we have.
After our 14 adults met for the first time, they may have forgotten each other's age, religion, and even their race, but they wouldn't have forgotten each other's gender.
What is gender? Heavens above, what a huge question.
Gender implies that it's a line that has been drawn, and there are enemies on either side.
Well, most people out this way wouldn't know what you're talking about anyway if you asked the question.
Gender to me is just the difference between male and female, boy and girl.
If your squidgy bits are on the inside, that makes you a female. If they're on the outside, that makes you a male, and that therefore defines your gender.
These days, of course, there's a few other options as well, aren't there?
Your sex can be male or female, but your gender can be a lot more fluid.
Academics and all those guys need to look into it, feminists, look into it. It's simple. It's penis and vagina. That's all gender is.
Whether you like the word or not, gender is important. It affects the job you have, the school you go to, how much you're paid, and even where you take a leak.
Most of the time we are doing gender. It's something that we don't know that we're doing.
Now be careful with those swords, please, boys. They're not for hitting people.
There's an age-old debate. Are we born with our gender, or are we taught it? Do boys really like trucks and balls? Do girls really like dolls and tea sets? Is it nature or is it nurture?
The most basic answer to that is it's really a combination of both. A really nice analogy is looking at height in basketball playing, for example. So people who are taller are more likely to be encouraged to play basketball. Because they're encouraged and because they're tall, they tend to do a little better at that, which means that they spend more time practicing and they get better and better, and eventually they become, say, a fantastic basketball player. That wasn't really all determined by biology. It just a small bit by biology, and then the rest, the environment kind of amplified.
I try not to stand anywhere on nature-nurture debates. I think they're too difficult.
They're inextricably interwoven. It's almost impossible to test one without the other.
Since having two little boys, I definitely think it has something to do with nature.
There are a few differences that you see right away. If you take a one-day-old infant and you show them different kinds of moving objects, boy infants prefer a mobile, whereas girl infants will prefer something social, more like a face talking to them. But you find that at birth. It's hard to argue that they could have learned that from the environment. But certainly within the first year or two, we start seeing major differences in play style.
From what I can tell, and I can only speak from my own experience, bringing up two little boys, if there's a digger on the road, they can stand and stare at it for an hour.
So, what happens if we give some kids free rein in a toy shop that they've never been to before? What toys do the boys choose, and what toys do the girls choose?
I want to get the 12 princesses with the princesses though. I've got XO4s.
And remember, we told these kids they could choose whatever toys they wanted.
These are boys' toys. I'm getting something else.
Our boys liked boys' toys, and our girls liked girls' toys. But is it nurture or is it nature? Have we taught these kids what toys they should like, or is there a biological process going on and they just can't help themselves?
Cool, Batman!
It's quite interesting, everyone says this toy is for a girl and this toy is for a boy. I would say that's the preconception of the adult trying to impose their view on what the kids would want. Without a doubt, some of the packaging is pink, but no one is stopping either gender from buying that product.
I don't like boys' toys because they don't have the colour that I like. I like pink and purple and orange and red.
There was a great idea among feminists that if we brought up our children with gender-free toys, they would be somehow genderless. Look, God knows what we thought. But I do remember giving my daughter Lego and thinking, right, I'm doing the right thing, and putting this stuff down in front of her. She couldn't have been more indifferent and remained totally indifferent to Lego and ended up with a collection of about 25 Barbie dolls. Now, you know, I gave in. It's what she wanted to play with.
I don't really like trucks and tractors and diggers. I think dressing up dolls is silly. Boys don't play with princesses.
Do little girls want to play with trucks and guns? I think some little girls do. And there's nothing wrong with that, either way.
Children play a very active role in selecting the activities that they do and selecting their playmates. So, you know, I'm a girl, I want to be seen as a girl, and I'm going to do girl behaviours.
Gender isn't limited to toys either. We showed our kids a selection of photos and asked them who they'd like to invite to their birthday party.
I like her hair tied up. Because she has a flower in her hair. Because she's got a flower.
Almost without exception, the girls wanted to invite girls and the boys wanted to invite boys.
Because there's a word on his t-shirt. Because I like his hair.
Some of the gender differences you see in children, you also see in other primates.
We gave Auckland Zoo's orangutans some toys they'd never seen before. Which toys would Charlie, the male, like?
He went straight past the baby doll and he went towards the more, I suppose, masculine or boy-type toys and gave him a bit of a biff to make sure that, they didn't biff him back and that they were sort of safe. But I was very surprised that he totally ignored that baby doll.
So which toys would Gungza and Malur, the female orangutans, go for? Well, they didn't touch the truck or the balls, but they did like the doll. So, it's nature. No one's told these orangutans which are boys' and girls' toys, have they? The driving force beneath our gender is sex hormones. With men, it's testosterone.
It's true that testosterone has a bit of a bad reputation. It's linked in a lot of people's minds with aggression.
I think it's unfair for testosterone to be blamed for a lot of these behaviours.
But if we didn't have testosterone, I think life would be a great deal less interesting.
On average, men have got 10 times more testosterone than women. But then women have got estrogen, and if they want them, babies.
I think the only time I consciously think about the fact that I'm a woman would be once a month and probably having children.
But do testosterone and estrogen really deserve the bad reputations they get, or is it a lot more complicated?
Hormones, because they're measurable, can be an easy scapegoat.
Apart from the obvious anatomical stuff, what makes men and women different? Well, it's sex hormones.
The hormonal differences between male and females really have to do with males you have testosterone, a large amount, and then women have estrogen and progesterone.
How do these naturally occurring chemicals affect our day-to-day lives? And what misconceptions do we have about them?
We put everything in the context of the standard male that we studied for years and years, and now we're realizing that women are different.
There's a much more open climate, and people are beginning to be really interested in the biological basis for sex differences.
Especially testosterone. If a man does anything blokey these days, it's where we lay the blame.
Testosterone's one of those hormones that we all hear a lot about. It's a sex hormone primarily. It's present in very, very tiny amounts, but even so, it has an effect way beyond what you would think from such a tiny amount.
Testosterone is, in the modern world, I think regarded badly. Testosterone, bad.
If anyone knows hormones, it's teenagers. So just like our adults, we've brought 14 of them together for some experiments. Before these guys met, we got them to set up a video link so they could question each other on a range of topics. We kept them separate so we'd get some honest answers. The boys are upstairs, the girls are downstairs.
Are men aggressive, competitive and violent?
Yeah, when they want to be. Yeah. I guess there's like an on-off switch.
Some men.
For every guy.
Depends on the guy.
Yeah.
Some are more aggressive than others. It really depends more, I guess, on what they're feeling, their mood maybe.
For me, I'm quite competitive and to some extent aggressive, but you won't find any violent bit of me at all. But then you see other guys and they're real violent. And
yeah. Do you think we're more easily aggravated?
Yes.
Are men really more aggressive and violent? We hit the road for another experiment. You're waiting at the traffic lights and it turns green. The problem is the person in front of you doesn't drive off. Our man is too busy reading the morning paper. What do the drivers behind him do? thought we'd see a few people lose it, especially men. But in the end, everyone was surprisingly calm. So what happens when it's a woman doing her hair and makeup? Surely this is enough to push someone over the edge. Well, again, we're surprisingly good-natured, until the old male stereotype rears its ugly head. Sometimes men just can't help themselves. The truth is, when a man loses his temper, it can happen for lots of reasons. But we love to blame testosterone.
Testosterone certainly brings out characteristics in people, but there is no evidence that, for example, people who are more aggressive have higher testosterone.
It's only partially associated with aggressive behaviour.
The testes or the ovaries aren't going to give a sudden squirt of testosterone. Instead, the feeling that people will have will be due to a lot of other things, such as, endorphins and adrenaline and just the physicality of it all.
Maybe it's time to celebrate rather than knock testosterone.
Nowadays we tend to punish boys for being boys, and we punish men for being men.
Most women love their men. Most women appreciate absolutely the fathers of their children. Most women would be appalled if all their testosterone was drained from their male partner.
Someone who wanted to do just that is Claudia Mackay, a transgender woman who used to be a man.
Hormones are incredibly powerful things. I never fully realised it until, firstly, I started taking them, and then I saw the results on other people. Testosterone, believe me, is the most powerful one of the lot, and the changes are absolutely incredible.
Claudia takes a suppressant to reduce the effects of testosterone. She also takes estrogen.
Estrogen is the main female sex hormone that's responsible for secondary sexual characteristics at puberty, and has very strong effects on breast development.
After about a year of the treatment, there was noticeable breast growth. Essentially, you're going through puberty all over again, so it takes a few years for everything to settle down.
Claudia is an accomplished artist, and although she's put her life as a man behind her, she's still married to wife Janet. As you can imagine, the emotional changes have been as significant as the physical changes.
The sex drive I had as a male is no longer there. I'd rather cuddle up with Janet in bed and just talk with her than have male attitude sex. That's not to say that we don't have sex. I mean, I still retain my penis, as small as it is now with the hormones, but our sexual activity is just different.
So is estrogen a good thing or a bad thing? We asked our teenagers if they thought estrogen had a lot to answer for.
Are girls too emotional, too talkative, and too affectionate?
I think they can be too emotional sometimes, but I don't think that they're too affectionate. Some girls are too talkative. I think we might make up for the affection that guys lack, maybe.
Just like testosterone, we like to credit estrogen with far too much.
My experience is that women are really complicated. It's more than just estrogen. There are lots of factors involved.
Estrogen does have some effects, if you like, on mind and mood, but alone it is not the only player that may dictate what those are.
But what happens when there's a higher level of estrogen than normal? Well, for some people, it's the very real problem of PMT.
Periods and PMT, please. I mean, yeah, for some people it's a pain. Don't get me wrong, it is a pain. But I think women have just been using that as an excuse for a long time to get away with treating people badly.
Some women may have a lot of physical feelings such as bloating and discomfort in the abdomen, may notice breast tenderness. Some others find quite marked mood change, and that may be being snappy or tearful.
Chemically, the women are very different because they, monthly they have, the certain hormone change that comes on, and we do That's a very different behaviour pattern, especially in my household.
Despite the downsides of estrogen, there are plenty of women who wouldn't be without it.
I love words and reading and talking and listening to somebody's problem and really, being able to empathise. For me as a woman, all of that stuff is really fulfilling.
I've tried it. Yeah.
That's why we gave it up, really.
We gave it up.
We didn't.
We could see we were getting hooked on it. We were starting to multitask. Kim was starting to ring me a lot more. We were having conversations on the phone, going shopping together, and we just put the kibosh on that. We said no. Went to a 12-step program to get out of estrogen dependency, but we're okay now.
Yeah. Yes, people do some fairly crazy things with hormones, but when it comes to competitive sport, will girls ever beat the guys?
Women's performance will never be equal to men.
But the physical differences don't end there.
Males are generally better at spatial things.
We put these uncomfortable truths to the test.
I imagined that the men would do all the lifting, but it didn't work out like that.
Kiwi men and women are different, right down to the hormones in their bodies. But how do these sex hormones affect our daily lives? Well, they play a part in almost everything we do. We asked our group of adults to unload a truck and carry everything up to the 3rd floor. It didn't take long for the physical differences to become obvious.
Okay. Oh, I should know this. What's that?
It's hydraulic, though, look. It's hydraulic.
True to the testosterone stereotype, the men think it's a race, even though they can't open the back of the truck.
Did we read the instructions? Yeah, the boys all acted like they knew what to do to get the tailgate down, but it took a girl to read the instructions.
The 2 bottom buttons.
Push them together.
Once the truck's open, the men try to prove their superior physical strength by carrying all the heavy stuff.
I imagined that the men would do all the lifting, but it didn't work out like that. The ladies just came in and they lifted everything we lifted. I don't think it's the sort of thing women should be doing, that's all.
That's right, I lift more heavier.
Men are built stronger for that sort of thing than women are. It's a physiological fact.
Well, I'm quite happy for the men to carry the heavy things, because it's easier for them than it is for me.
Not that women are weak, but men are more muscular.
While some people think men are stronger than women, is this actually true?
Before puberty, males and females look pretty similar as far as muscle mass, but that changes greatly after puberty.
Men have testosterone about 10 times as much as women.
Testosterone is anabolic, meaning it builds up the body. Bodybuilders have known this for years, and they take testosterone or other anabolic hormones to build up muscle mass. If you took the same area of muscle in men and women, that area of muscle has the same strength. Okay? It's just that men have more of it. If we look at, say, traditional athletics type events, I think women's performance will never be equal to men. And that's not to slight women at all. It's just a function of muscle mass and these hormones that we both possess.
The other thing that sets men and women apart is the grey matter that controls our muscles, the brain.
First of all, the similarities between males and females. IQ is almost identical in male and female populations, so there's virtually nothing in what you might call intellectual function. There are some differences within that. I mean, males are generally better at spatial things, and women are usually better at verbal things.
Back at our experiment, the men's spatial skills are coming to the fore. The men are determined to get as many boxes in the lift as possible, with not an inch of space wasted. So, with something as simple as unloading furniture, the physical differences between the genders are obvious. And the driving force behind it all? Sex hormones.
I love that men are physically stronger than women. I mean, if you've got to pick up heavy things, if you're moving house, bring the men around. I love that.
While we may not move house every day, we do wash the dishes.
I think there are definitely occasions when men are from Mars and women are from Venus. I know, for example, that my own husband is adamant that I'm incapable of packing the dishwasher.
Boys and men are better at mentally rotating an object in their head.
I think what annoys Mr. Barry about the dishwasher is that I never get enough stuff in.
So imagine some kind of abstract figure and you can imagine it moving in space. That's something that on average girls have a harder time doing than boys.
And I'm constantly amazed by the fact that he is able to stick every imaginable dish in there.
But apart from stacking the dishwasher, why do spatial skills matter? Well, your career choice for one. Architecture is one field where you couldn't be without them.
In answer to people who say women shouldn't be architects or engineers because they're not biologically capable of doing it, I'm speechless. I think it's absolute rubbish.
Certainly women have made immense strides in catching up to men. The question whether they will in fact catch up, I think, is unknown.
Just because there might be a tendency for women's brains on average to not have some of the skills that people think are associated with architecture and engineering and design, which is this 3D spatialisation stuff, doesn't mean that all women don't have it.
Okay, so maybe a building won't fall down if it's designed by a woman, but would you want her to drive your new car? Driving is another area where you really need spatial skills.
Are boys better drivers than girls?
I don't think girls pick up driving, like when they learn to drive, I don't think they pick it up as naturally as guys.
I've been learning how to drive a manual for like a week and a half, and like stalling and bunny hopping and stuff, and then my boyfriend never driven a manual before. He jumps in and drives it, no stalling, nothing.
Guys have an advantage, you know, spatial recognition. There are exceptions, I don't want to generalise, but chicks can't parallel park.
My parallel parking skills aren't too bad if I don't have a crowd.
If you want a guy to do something, make it a challenge, make it the possibility of it being a game.
If there was a park right outside a flash cafe at lunchtime, I would never ever attempt to park there for fear of failure.
I'm always have, you know, that little commentary running in your head. Corbett, he's going to parallel park. This is for the goal. He's lined it up 80 inches from the curb. Whoa!
Who's better at parallel parking and all those kind of manoeuvres and stuff? Would you say girls or guys?
I reckon guys are really good.
Yeah, I think guys are pretty good at it.
Yeah. Girls are like, they take their time.
I reckon guys practice more.
Boys may get more practice, but what about something they've never done before? We asked some of our teenagers to reverse a trailer.
I've had my licence for about 5 months. I've never reversed a trailer before, so I thought I'd do pretty badly when I first saw what I had to do, but I don't know, I did all right.
Sam said that he'd never backed a trailer before, but he's probably lying because he did very well at it. But when I tried to back the trailer, I thought that if you turn the wheel one way, the trailer went the other way. So I tried doing that, but it just didn't quite seem to work. It just turned really sharply, so it was hard to get it straight. Okay, I can't do it. I can't do it.
Maybe Naomi's just having a bad day. What about Esther?
No, I've never reversed a trailer before. It's quite hard. I thought it would be, I'd do better, but I don't know, it's just hard to control it because you've got to turn the opposite way and it's confusing.
I've had my licence for about 2 weeks. Never reversed a trailer ever in my life. It's sort of built into us, isn't it, like just over the years.
The boys are the ones that go and get the tractor or go and get the boat and turn the car around and stuff, and so girls don't really get the opportunity to do that kind of stuff.
Girls just go around looking at dresses and, you know.
Imagine Hillary trying to reverse a trailer. She'll be dealing with it in the way she normally deals with things. Trailer would be going the wrong direction, she'd be yelling at it.
It goes the opposite way to the way you expect it to, and I simply can't get my head around it.
It'll be the trailer's fault. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? And that's why I feel sorry for her husband.
Unfortunately, I'm showing female traits of going, I can't do it, can you do it, love?
There's almost certainly a kind of a cultural component. I mean, men are supposed to be the ones who were the hunters, if you like. who do the more geographic kinds of things, moving around in space, whereas women probably were more confined to skills that involve close work. So it could be entirely cultural, but I would be surprised if there weren't a genetic component as well that may have even driven the cultural differences.
Where's the torch? Women may lose in spatial tasks, but don't write them off just yet. There's always language and multitasking skills. Or are these more myths waiting to be busted?
They don't multitask very well. It's just natural for us to do that.
The human brain is made up of two hemispheres, and one side is usually more dominant than the other. On average, women are dominant on the left-hand side, the side of the brain that processes speech and language. A simple way of determining the dominant side of your brain is to clasp your hands together with your thumbs crossed. The thumb that ends up on top is likely to represent the dominant side of your brain. But there's a trick.
Each side of the brain controls the opposite side of the body.
As expected, most of our men had left thumbs over right, making the right side of their brains dominant, the side that controls visual and spatial processes. Our women had mostly right thumbs over left, making them dominant on the left side of the brain, the side more adept at language.
Women are better at language, certainly in language tests, but it probably plays out in terms of understanding, conversation, simply talking. I think women talk more than men.
They like to gossip.
I love that as a woman I can get together with my friends and spend time talking, and that's okay. I don't have to apologise for that. I don't know what I'd do if I couldn't call up my girlfriends and go, no, but he actually said that. No, seriously, I know.
And they also are more likely to have language represented on both sides of the brain. Although the left side is dominant, there's more verbal representation on the right side in women than there is in men.
Enough science. We thought we'd play a game of Chinese whispers. With their superior language skills, we thought the women would do well, even if it was about rugby.
Richie scored 3 tries at the round 10 clash at Carisbrook last night, where they won 5 tries to 2.
Wilson scored 5 tries, something to 2.
Richie McCaw scored 5 tries to 2 at Carisbrook last night.
I think we pick up on the words that have interest to us. We retain those words.
The men did surprisingly well, so we thought we'd throw in a whisper they wouldn't want to remember.
A woman will use around 10,000 tampons and have about 400 periods in their lifetime before menopause begins in her 40s or 50s.
A woman will use 10,000 tampons for her monthly periods by the time she's in her 40s and 50s.
Pretty good for the guys. So how about the women?
A woman will have 10,000 periods in her lifetime, but I don't know what the rest of it is.
I think the thing that we had most difficulty with is remembering the numbers and the sequence.
In the end, the men did better on 7 of the 8 whispers we tried. We thought the women would be clear winners in this language test. Our explanation, that being men, their testosterone gave them a competitive advantage over the women.
But it's very difficult to tell with any of these differences whether they're neurological or whether they're social.
So what about that old cliche, multitasking? Women are supposed to be much better at it than men. But what's the reality?
I don't think there's very good evidence on that. Some people relate it to the connections between the two sides of the brain are more numerous in women than in men. But I don't think the reasoning is very good there. I actually have done work with split brain people. That is, people who've had the corpus callosum cut. And in some sense, they're better able to multitask because each side of the brain can function independently.
Women are supposedly good at multitasking because they have to be. Men have traditionally been hopeless around the house.
When we leave for work in the morning, I'll be running around the house thinking, is the door open for the cats, and if they got food, and are the lights off, and is this off? And, you know, Dave will worry about the heater, and that's about it, because that's his thing, is power.
I would generally switch the heaters on in winter time. That's very much my role.
But other than that, he'll just walk out, and I'll be like, oh, have you, thought about the cats or the food? Oh, no.
Yeah, no, look, we share a lot of roles together.
They don't multitask very well. It's just natural for us to do that.
Multitasking with women is them just showing off. It's them saying, I can do it, so I will. They could spread everything out through the day, but what they do is they wait until...
Bundle it all together, don't they? Yeah.
And they've created this hell hour.
Yeah. This situation, and
where the kids need to be fed and the food needs to be on and the phone calls need to be made and everything's going off.
Just take your time, space it out.
With good planning, you wouldn't need to multitask.
Exactly.
I see it as a weakness.
We decided to put multitasking to the test. Are women better at it than men, or is this another myth waiting to be busted? We gave our teenagers a list of 10 things to do. Who will be fastest and who will be the most accurate?
Change the light bulb in the lamp and turn it on. Where's the lamp?
Before they can change the light bulb, they have to find the spares. Nick's flustered already, whereas Jessica has already turned off the dripping tap.
It was hard, I didn't know what to do, I was put on the spot.
My system was I did a couple of things at a time. I read the instructions through the whole first time to see what was easiest to do first. And I ticked them off as I was going through.
Now, when people have done research on multitasking, it's not that clear that women are better. Women are, I think, more accurate and men are faster, is what I've mostly read.
Put the toilet seat down.
So, will Nick's speed beat Jessica's accuracy? Are women's multitasking skills a myth? Men and women are different physically. They're different neurologically and hormonally. But how do these differences play out in our day-to-day lives? We decided to test our teenagers' multitasking skills to find out. Nick's off to a bad start. He can't find a light bulb for the lamp. Meanwhile, Jessica's onto the 4th of her 10 tasks already.
Light bulb.
So, how will they go taking a message on the phone? Especially when the TV's turned up loud.
Hello? Hi, it's Tiffany calling from the computer repair shop.
Jessica turns the volume down straight away.
John's computer's ready to be picked up. The cost is $749.
Sweet.
While Nick battles on, desperately trying to hear the message.
We're open from 4 p.m. today.
Computer's ready to be picked up.
Okay. And then through 8 till 6 through Monday, Friday.
We put 6 of our teenagers through this multitasking test. Overall, the guys had the faster average times, but they were less accurate, especially with the phone message.
The message was that the computer
Was ready to be picked up.
and the cost was
$649.
$6.49.
This seems to be more about nurture than nature. The girls don't have a biological advantage over the boys. They've just had more practice. They've been brought up doing more things around the house.
I do some of these things at home, like the washing and making a sandwich and changing toilet roll. Yeah.
I do my room and, empty the dishwasher and, that's about it.
In some sense, culture demands that women multitask more. So if you have little children running around and you're trying to do something else, like cook and housework and perhaps a job on the side, then women are forced to multitask more. And they may simply have got better at it through practice in those cases.
It's clear we've all got physical strengths and weaknesses. The cause of these differences is complex. Sometimes it's nature, sometimes it's nurture, and often it's both. But in the end, it's the results of these differences that matter, how they affect our daily lives. In New Zealand, gender differences have often resulted in inequality.
This idea of sexual difference often gets translated into a justification for sexual inequality.
There is still a perception that when you change from male to female, that in a way you're still trading down. And there are still a lot of aspects of society where men get the better deal.
But why should anyone get the better deal? Despite the physical differences, why are men and women treated differently?
There's no reason why certain forms of chromosomal or genetic differences need to translate into women are for the home, men are for the public sphere.
I don't think that biological differences these days should be used for anything other than the very, very basic small things to which they apply, like pregnancy and childbirth and breastfeeding.
I think what we need to move toward is appreciation of certain differences, but thinking of the sexes as different but equal.
We asked our teenagers what they thought about pay equity.
Should girls earn the same amount of money as boys?
Yeah. I think we should all be equally paid. Same
You
as
all
youth
think
rates.
that?
What?
Yeah, I agree. Why isn't it then? Like, I heard some statistic that women are only getting paid like 80% of a man's wage. Isn't that possibly because men have to support for the family as well? So
Yeah, like in the past, but not so much anymore. Like the lines blur, things change.
Do you think it will change when more women have higher status jobs than they used to?
I think we just too much emphasis on there's a girl in power or a guy in power. It's just rather than just it's a person in power.
And that's already happening. How many of us give our female Prime Minister a second thought these days?
It was certainly significant for New Zealand that someone could run and be elected as a woman in New Zealand. It was something that was a long time coming, and it wasn't easy getting into that position.
You should be judged on how good you are at what you do, not whether you're a male or a female.
And in a country of 4 million people, you can't really ignore the talent of 2 million.
I don't know any women around who don't want equality, and some think they've already got it totally.
Socioeconomic equality between women and men is a key goal that hasn't really yet been achieved.
The fight for equality isn't over for New Zealand women, but of course it's not just about them. What have the changes made over the last 40 years meant for men?
More sex with less complications. Wives earning more money. That's good and bad. I think it's made a lot of men lose their way.
And I think a lot of that has got to do with the fact that men are just not sure what their role in society is these days.
I've come across a couple of guys and think, for God's sakes, grow some balls.
Yeah.
You know?
Toughen
Don't
up.
don't be such a pussy. Grow some balls.
Someone who can, you can look up to.
Aren't we supposed to have the balls and the tits these days?
Well, this is the problem.
Yeah.
I don't think we should, because we've got nothing to look up to.
They leave it up to us to do everything.
They've gotten lazy, and that's our fault.
I think we're getting mixed messages. It's sort of, come here, get away. It's that sort of, it's that, come here, yeah, get away.
I think men are very confused today as to how they should act, what women expect from them.
But in some ways, perhaps women don't really know what they want. They thought they did, and now they're achieving the power and the glory. They're realising it's not quite the cushy canoe ride that they thought it was.
Over the next 3 weeks, we'll see what's happening to relationships, sex and marriage. Who's doing the housework, earning the money and raising the kids? What do the physical differences we've looked at tonight actually mean for New Zealanders like you? Where are gender relations at? Where are they going? And do we actually want to end up there? What's the future for men and women in New Zealand?
I like girls because they wear dresses. My sister said dolls are for girls. I really like the colours of the 12 princesses because they're the colours of the rainbow. I like playing with Batman. I don't play with trucks and because I don't like them. I like Lego because my sister doesn't bother me when I'm making it.
This program was made with funding from New Zealand On Air.